Chapter 1. The New Puppy. My name is John Grogan, and I love dogs. When I was 10 years old, my father gave me my first dog. I called him Sean. Sean was my best friend. He went everywhere with me, and he was very obedient. When I called him, he came to me. He played with me, and he walked next to me without a leash. In the car, he sat next to me quietly. After many years, Sean died. He was 14 years old. By that time, I wasn't a boy. I was a man. I had my first job. Sean was a great dog. I wanted to get another dog, but it had to be as wonderful as Sean. Some years later, I moved to Florida and married Jenny. Jenny and I had jobs with newspapers. We were very happy. We were young and in love, and life was wonderful. One day, I bought a plant for Jenny. It was very large, with beautiful white flowers. Jenny loved it, maybe too much. Every day, she gave it water. In the end, the plant got sick and died. Some days later, I woke up early. Jenny wasn't in bed. I found her at the table with a newspaper. She had a red pen in her hand. "Jenny," I said, "what are you doing?" She showed me the newspaper. It was open at a page of ads. "Look at this, John," she said. I saw an ad with a big red line under it. Beautiful Labrador puppies, 5 weeks old. "I can't forget about that plant," Jenny said. "Why couldn't I look after a plant? I only had to give it water, but I killed it." She looked sad, but then she smiled. "I can't look after a plant, but maybe I can look after a dog. And later, maybe I'll be ready for a baby." I thought about that. Jenny and I wanted to have children one day, but we love dogs too. Our little house was a good place for a dog. We lived near a park and near a beach, and the house had a big yard with lots of trees. "Okay," I said. I put my arms around Jenny. "Let's get a dog." So some days later, we drove to the address in the ad. The house was in the middle of some woods. A woman came to the door, and there was a beautiful yellow Labrador with her. "I'm Lori," said the woman, "and this is Lily. She's the puppy's mother." "Where's the father?" I asked. "Oh," said Lori, "Sammy boy? He's around here somewhere." Then she said quickly, "Do you want to see the puppies?" Lori took us into a room behind the kitchen. There were a lot of newspapers on the floor and a large box by the wall. In the box were 9 yellow puppies. "Oh!" cried Jenny. "Aren't they beautiful?" We sat on the floor with the puppies. One little puppy really liked us. He climbed up our shirts and looked into our eyes. "The puppies are $375 each," said Lori. "But you can have that puppy for $350. I stood up and turned away from the puppies. Then I turned back quickly and shouted loudly. The other puppies ran away. But the little puppy ran to me and climbed over my shoes. "That's our puppy," Jenny laughed. I held him in front of my face. I looked at him and he looked at me. He had very large brown eyes. I gave him to Jenny and she held him too. "I think he likes us," I said. We paid Lori for him. "Come back for him in 3 weeks," she said. "He'll be 8 weeks old, so you can take him then." We thanked Lori and said goodbye. On our way to the car, I put my arm around Jenny. "Isn't it wonderful?" I said. "We got our dog." "Yes," she said. "I can't wait to bring him home." Suddenly, we heard a loud noise in the woods. Something ran out of the trees, something large and yellow. It was a big Labrador. But this dog was very different from Lily. This dog was wild and dirty. It had a crazy look in its eyes. It ran quickly past us and around the back of the house. "I think," I said slowly, "that's Dad." Jenny and I tried to think of a name for our puppy, but each of us liked different names. One morning, we heard a song by Bob Marley, the Jamaican singer, on the radio. Bob Marley was dead, but people played his music everywhere in Florida. Jenny and I liked his music too. Suddenly, at the same time, we shouted, "Marley!" "That's it," I cried. "That's his name, Marley." Jenny smiled. Some days later, Jenny's sister called her from Boston. "We're visiting Disney World next week with the children," she said. "Would you like to come with us?" Jenny wanted to go to Disney World very much. "But I won't be here when Marley comes home," she said. "That's okay," I said. "I'll go and get Marley." A week later, Jenny left for Orlando. That evening after work, I drove to Laurie's house. Marley was a very large puppy now. "He eats a lot," said Laurie. "Are you ready for your new home, Marley?" I said. I used his name for the first time, and it felt right. Marley sat next to me in the car. He tried to climb on me, but each time, he fell back on the floor. In the end, he climbed up and sat on me. He wagged his tail happily. When we got home, I took off his leash. Marley began to sniff. He went around the house and sniffed everything. Then he sat back and looked at me with his large brown eyes. I could read Marley's thoughts. This place is great. But where are my brothers and sisters? I took Marley to the garage, next to the house. It was a warm, dry room. "Marley," I said, "this is your room now." I put some newspapers down on the floor. I put some playthings down too. Then I put some water in a bowl and made a bed from a large box. "You're going to sleep here," I said. I put Marley into the box. He looked sadly up at me. I went back into the house and closed the door. I stood and listened. I could hear nothing. Then I heard a cry, and then another cry. The cries got louder and louder. When I opened the door again, Marley stopped crying. I petted him for some time. Then I left again and closed the door. Marley started to cry again. I was very tired, so I went to my bedroom. My bedroom wasn't near the garage, but I could hear Marley's cries. I felt sorry for him. His family wasn't there. After I got into bed, I listened to Marley's cries for half an hour. Then I got up and went back to the garage. Marley stopped crying and wagged his tail. I carried his box into my bedroom and put it on the floor next to my bed. Then I got into bed and put my hand down into the box. Some minutes later, Marley was asleep. I slept too. Chapter 2. Life with Marley. For the next 3 days, I played with Marley. I lay on the floor and he climbed on me. He followed me everywhere, and he tried to chew on everything. When Jenny came back from Disney World, she played with Marley too. She held him and petted him. She got up in the night and took him outside. Most of all, she gave him food. Marley ate 3 large bowls of puppy food every day. He got bigger all the time. His head and his paws were very large, and his tail was thick and heavy. When he wagged his tail, he pushed everything onto the floor magazines and glasses and photos. Marley loved to grab things and hold them in his mouth. He grabbed things from the floor and from the dining room table. He grabbed shoes, pens, bottle tops, and many other things. "All right, what have you got this time?" I asked. When I opened his mouth, I always found something new inside. Every morning, I took Marley for a walk on the beach. Then I put him in the garage with a bowl of water and some playthings. After that, I went to work. I always said, "Be a good boy, Marley." Jenny came home at lunchtime and gave him food. In the evenings, we took Marley down to the beach again. But our walks weren't easy. Marley ran in front of us and pulled on his leash. We pulled him back, then he pulled us again. He went this way and that way, and he sniffed everything. We tried to teach Marley, "Come, stay, sit, down, no exclamation mark." But he didn't listen to us. He wasn't obedient. He was like an excited child. But every day he got bigger and stronger. "I killed the plant, but I'm good with Marley," Jenny said happily. One day, Jenny invited a friend to our house. Her friend brought her old dog Buddy with her. Buddy and Marley ran and played. Then they were tired, so they lay down in the yard. Some days later, Jenny was with Marley when she said, "Come and look at this, John." I looked, and I saw something small and black in Marley's fur. "Oh no," I said. "Marley has fleas." They were on his paws, inside his ears and under his tail. "Buddy had fleas and he gave them to Marley," said Jenny angrily. She ran out and got into her car. Half an hour later, she came back with bags of chemicals. First, she washed Marley's fur with the chemicals. Then she put him in the garage and cleaned the house carefully. I cleaned the yard. Every day after that, we looked in Marley's fur, but we couldn't see any more fleas. Some weeks later, Jenny said, "John, I'm going to have a baby." "That's wonderful," I said. I was very happy. We were ready for a baby now. Then Jenny said, "But will those chemicals be a problem?" "What chemicals?" I asked. "What do you mean? Don't you remember?" "I used very strong chemicals when Marley had fleas. They can't be good for a baby," she said. She talked to her doctor about the chemicals. "It's all right, Jenny," he said. "Everything will be okay." Jenny got up early every day and took Marley for a walk. She ate lots of fruits and vegetables. After 10 weeks, she and I saw the doctor again. "Would you like to see your baby?" he asked. "Yes, please," we said. We felt very excited. The doctor took us into a room at the back and Jenny lay down. He moved something over Jenny. On a machine next to him, we could see something like a small gray bag, but we couldn't see a baby inside. "Is there anything in there?" asked Jenny. After a time, the doctor said quietly, "I'm very sorry, Jenny. Your baby's dead." I felt sick. I sat and held Jenny's hand. We didn't say anything for a long time. When the doctor left, I put my arms around my wife. Later, I took her home. She was very quiet in the car. Her eyes were red, but she didn't cry. Back home, Jenny went into the dining room and sat down quietly on a chair. I got Marley from the garage. He was very excited. He jumped up and wagged his tail. He wanted to play. "Not today, Marley," I said sadly. Marley ran into the yard. He came back into the house and drank water from his bowl. Then he ran into the dining room and I followed him. But at the door of the dining room, I stopped. I saw a wonderful thing. Marley stood quietly in front of Jenny with his tail between his legs. He put his big head on her legs. He looked at her with his large eyes and made small cries. Marley understands, I thought. Jenny petted his head and put her face in his fur. Then suddenly she began to cry. I went to them and put my arms around them. The three of us stayed there for a long time. Jenny, Marley, and me. Chapter 3. The Obedience Class. When Marley was 6 months old, Dr. J, the animal doctor, told us about an obedience class. We loved Marley very much, but he wasn't an obedient dog. Every day he got bigger and stronger, and he didn't listen to us. He jumped up on us. He grabbed things in the house and chewed them. When I bought flowers for Jenny, Marley ate them. We met the teacher of the obedience class. She had a cold face and she didn't smile. "There are no bad dogs," she said, "but there are some very weak people." The class was every Tuesday evening. We put Marley into the car and drove to the first class. When Marley saw the other dogs, he got very excited. A party! He jumped out of the car. I ran after him, but I couldn't catch him. Marley sniffed every dog before I caught his leash. "Take that dog back to his place in the line," said the teacher. "Who is going to be his boss, you or your wife?" "I am," I said. "Me too," said Jenny. "No," said the teacher. "A dog can only have one boss." "Okay," said Jenny. "I'll do it." The other dogs sat quietly in a line. Jenny took Marley to his place. I stood and watched. Suddenly, Marley saw another dog at the end of the line. That dog looked interesting. He started to pull Jenny. She tried to stop him, but she couldn't. Marley was stronger than Jenny, so he pulled her to the other dog. Then he sniffed around it. "That dog thinks he's the boss," said the teacher coldly. She started to teach the class. "Sit and down." "Sit," Jenny told Marley. But Marley didn't want to sit. He jumped up and put his paws on Jenny. After the class, the teacher said, "You have to be strong with that animal. You're the boss. Show him that." When we got home, Jenny said, "You can take Marley to the class next week." The next Tuesday, Marley and I went back to the class. Jenny stayed at home. In the car, I said to Marley, "I'm the boss." "You're not the boss. I'm the boss. Do you understand?" But Marley only looked at me and wagged his tail. Then he tried to chew my hands. In this lesson, the dogs had to walk quietly next to us. It was a very important lesson for Marley. When he went for a walk with Jenny and me, he always pulled us. The teacher gave us chains. "Put the chain over your dog's head," she said. "When he pulls you, pull him back with it. It will hurt him, so he'll stop pulling." I tried to put the chain over Marley's head, but Marley, of course, got very excited. A new game! He grabbed the chain with his teeth. I tried again, but each time, Marley grabbed it. In the end, I got the chain over Marley's head and started to walk with him. When Marley pulled in front of me, I pulled him back with the chain. But then he pulled away again. "Here," said the teacher. "I'll show you." She took Marley's leash and started to walk with him. Marley pulled the chain, and the teacher pulled him back. But then Marley pulled the chain again. This new game was great. Then Marley saw me. He started to run to me and he pulled the teacher after him. Marley was bigger and stronger than the teacher, so she couldn't stop him. She was very angry. After class, the teacher said, "Your dog isn't ready for this class. He's too young. You can bring him back in 6 or 8 months." "Are you telling us that we have to leave the class?" I said. "That's right," she said. "You have to leave." Because Marley couldn't go back to the class, I started to teach him at home. But it was difficult. Marley wasn't a fast learner. We had another problem with Marley. In Florida, there were often thunderstorms. Marley was afraid of loud noises. He went crazy in a storm. He broke things and made everything dirty. After each storm, Marley quickly forgot about it. He was happy again and wanted to play. But in the next storm, the same thing happened. He was afraid, so he went crazy again. We talked to Dr. J about the problem. Dr. J was young and he understood dogs very well. "What can we do?" we asked. "When Marley gets crazy, he breaks things. One day he'll get hurt in a storm." "Marley is 7 months old," said Dr. J. "I'll neuter him. Then he won't get so excited. He'll be a quieter, happier dog." I thought about that. "Oh," I said, "I don't really know." "Yes," said Jenny. "That's a great idea." "Bring Marley here on your way to work," said Dr. J. "It doesn't take long. He'll be ready by the afternoon. You can get him again on your way home." A week later, we took Marley to Dr. J. Marley ran from the house and jumped into the car. He was very happy. He loved to go out with Jenny and me, his 2 best friends. Jenny drove and I sat next to her with Marley. He pushed at the window with his nose. He wanted to sniff outside the car. I opened the window and Marley put his nose outside. "I feel sorry for Marley," I said to Jenny. Then I looked at him. His front paws were out of the window. "John," said Jenny, "what's Marley doing?" "Please be careful." "He's fine," I said. "He only wants to put his head outside." Marley put his head out of the window. Then suddenly he pushed his front legs out too. He tried to jump down on the road, but the road was very busy with cars. "John!" shouted Jenny. "Hold him!" Jenny tried to stop the car, but she couldn't. The other cars drove around us very fast. It was very dangerous. Now Marley's front paws were down on the road. He ran next to the car. I grabbed him by his tail, and Jenny stopped the car. "Now what?" I shouted. I couldn't pull Marley back into the car. I couldn't open the door. I couldn't get my other arm out, and there were cars all around us. The other drivers looked at us angrily. Jenny opened her door and got out of the car. She ran around it and grabbed Marley. I opened my door and got out too. In the end, we got Marley back into the car. When we got to Dr. J's, I took Marley inside. He sniffed everywhere. Then he pushed over a table with magazines on it. I gave Marley's leash to Dr. J. "Please neuter him as quickly as possible," I said. "Please." That evening, when I took Marley home, I saw a change in him. He wasn't excited and crazy. He moved quietly and slowly. Good, I thought. Chapter 4. Changes at home. Jenny and I worked hard at our jobs. We also worked hard at home. So one evening I said, "Let's go on vacation, Jenny." The next day, I bought 2 airplane tickets. They were for a 3-week vacation in Ireland. "What are we going to do about Marley?" asked Jenny. We can leave him in the house, I said. Somebody can stay here with him. Marley is a difficult dog, said Jenny. That person will have to be kind but also strong. He or she will have to be his boss. I know, I said. Then I had an idea. Kathy loves animals. Kathy worked in my office. The next day, I asked her and she said yes. Before she arrived, I wrote some notes for her about Marley. There were 6 pages of notes. I showed them to Jenny. Did I forget anything? I asked. Jenny read the notes, then she said, You can't tell Kathy all that. She won't want to stay with Marley. But when Kathy read the notes, she smiled. Marley and I will be fine, she said. Have a great vacation. Jenny and I had a wonderful vacation in Ireland. The weather was fine and warm. We drove on small country roads and walked by the ocean. At night, we stayed in the houses of Irish families. We forgot about our jobs in Florida. When we arrived home, Marley ran outside to us. Kathy stood at the door. She looked very tired. Her bag was next to her. I'm sorry, she said. But Marley broke a lot of things in the house. He wasn't obedient, and he didn't listen to me. We thanked Kathy, but she wanted to leave very quickly. I turned to Marley. All right, Marley, I said. Tomorrow, you're going to learn about obedience. The next morning, Jenny and I went back to work. But first, I put the chain around Marley's neck and took him for a walk. Marley started to pull me. Sit, Marley, I said. Marley sat. Okay, let's try that again, I said. We started to walk, and Marley pulled me again. I made the chain very short and pulled him back. It hurt him, but it was the only way. In the end, he learned his lesson. He walked next to me and didn't pull me. I felt very happy. Good, Marley, I said. I'm the boss. Some days later, Jenny called me at the office. John, she said, I went to see the doctor. I'm going to have a baby. This time, Jenny and I were very careful, and we put away every chemical in the house. Jenny looked well. She got up early each morning and took Marley for a walk by the ocean. When we went to the doctor, we saw our baby on the machine. But I didn't forget about Marley. I worked with him every day. Marley was more obedient now, but he didn't listen to me all the time. He came when I called him sometimes. In our yard, we had a fruit tree. Marley loved eating fruit, but it went through him quickly. His poop was everywhere in the yard. He ate a lot of other things, too. These went through him and came out in his poop toys, pens, and bottle tops. I bought Jenny a beautiful chain for her birthday. She loved it, and she put it around her neck. But some hours later, she cried, My chain, where is it? Maybe I didn't put it on right. We didn't go outside, I said. So it's here in the house. We looked in every room, but we couldn't find the chain. Suddenly, Jenny said, What's that in Marley's mouth? I saw the end of a thin chain. Oh no, I cried. Okay, Marley, it's all right. Come here now. Please give us the chain. But Marley only looked at us. Suddenly, he threw his head back. He's eating the chain, cried Jenny. I opened his mouth and pushed my hand down. But I couldn't find the chain. We'll have to wait, I said. The chain will go through Marley and come out in his poop. I gave Marley lots of fruit. We waited for 3 days. I followed Marley everywhere. When he pooped, I looked for the chain, but it wasn't there. On the 4th day, I found it. After I washed it, it was very clean. It had a beautiful shine. That's wonderful, Jenny said. It shines better than before. Jenny wore that chain for years. When I saw it, I always thought of Marley. Our son was born in St. Mary's Hospital in Palm Beach. We called him Patrick, an Irish name. Things are going to change at home for Marley now, said Jenny. Maybe he won't like the changes. I brought Jenny and Patrick home from the hospital. Patrick was asleep, and we put him on our bed. Then we went to the garage and brought Marley into the house. He followed Jenny into the bedroom, but he didn't see Patrick on the bed. Then Patrick made a small noise, and Marley's ears went up. Where did that noise come from? Patrick made another noise. Marley held up a paw, and Jenny and I watched him. What's Marley going to do? I thought. Marley jumped up onto the bed. I pulled him back quickly and held him. Patrick's eyes were very wide. But Marley didn't want to hurt Patrick. He sniffed all around him. Now Marley had a new best friend. When he was near Patrick, he wasn't wild and crazy. At night, he slept under Patrick's bed. 6 months later, Patrick started to move around. Marley lay on the floor and Patrick climbed over him. Sometimes Patrick pulled Marley's fur. But Marley lay quietly and didn't move. We were parents now, and we were happy. We had our wonderful baby. We had our dog. We had our house by the ocean. Life was good. Then, when Patrick was 9 months old, Jenny said, "I'm going to have another baby." Chapter 5. Difficult Days. Sometimes, bad things happened in our street. One night, in October, Jenny and I were in bed. Marley lay on the floor next to me. Suddenly, I heard a cry. The cry of a girl. It came from the street outside. I felt afraid, but I jumped out of bed. "Come with me, Marley," I said. "Please, John, don't go out there," said Jenny. "Call the police," I said. "I'll be careful." I held Marley by the end of his chain. The girl cried again. We went outside, and a man ran away down the street. 2 young men ran to me. "Go and stay with the girl," they shouted. "Help her. We're going after the man." I ran to the girl. She was my neighbor's daughter, Lisa. She was 17 years old. Her shirt was red and wet. "What happened?" I asked. "I was in my car," she said. "A man got in and put his hand over my mouth. He said, 'Don't make a noise,' but I did, and he cut me with his knife." I held Lisa in my arms. "It's going to be all right," I said, but I didn't really think that. Lisa's face was gray, and she was very weak. I looked at Marley. He stood and looked down the street. He looked strong and ready for a fight. Nobody could get past him. Some minutes later, the police arrived with doctors, and they took Lisa away. A policeman asked me questions. Then I went home with Marley. Jenny met us at the door. "Marley was a different dog tonight," I said. "Nothing can hurt us when he's with us." I looked at Marley. "You did well tonight," I said. Lisa didn't die. She got well again, but I never forgot that night. One night, when Jenny and I were in bed, she said, "John, I think the baby is coming. Please call the doctor." Something's wrong, I thought. It's too early for the baby. I took Jenny to the hospital. "Your baby is too small," the doctor said to her. "We have to stop him coming out. You'll have to stay in the hospital." Jenny was in the hospital for 12 days. I stayed at home with Patrick and Marley. I did the housework. I cooked and washed clothes. In the evenings, I was very tired. Marley sat and looked at me sadly. I could read his thoughts. "I don't understand. Why doesn't John want to play with me? Why doesn't he take me for walks? And where's Jenny?" I didn't do things at home very well. I left the bathroom door open all the time. Marley loved to go into the bathroom and to drink water from the shower. One day, I took Patrick on a visit to the hospital. "What did you do to Patrick?" Jenny asked. "What do you mean?" I asked. "He's fine." "Look at him," said Jenny. I looked. His arms were in the legs of his baby clothes. Jenny called my Aunt Anita. She also lived in Florida, but in a different town. "Please, can you look after John and Patrick?" she said. 2 days later, Aunt Anita arrived. She did the housework, and everything at home was fine again. When Jenny came home, she had to stay in bed all day. This was a very difficult time for her. She couldn't cook or go for a walk. Worst of all, she couldn't hold Patrick. Marley brought his playthings into the bedroom and lay on the floor next to Jenny. He stayed there day and night. Aunt Anita had to go home to her husband, so I had to look after the house again. Then, one day, when the doctor visited Jenny, he said, "You can get up now. The baby is bigger." Jenny was very happy. She got up and played with Patrick and Marley. She started to do the housework. The next day, we went to a Greek restaurant for lunch. But suddenly, the baby started to come, so I took Jenny to the hospital. Then everything happened very quickly. 1 hour later, I held my beautiful new son in my arms. Jenny and I had 2 sons now, Patrick and Connor. One was 17 months old, and one was a baby. We were very happy with our sons, but we were tired all the time. The babies woke us every night. We couldn't sleep for more than 2 hours. Connor had problems with Jenny's milk. After he drank, he was sick, so Jenny was very sad. "What's wrong with me?" she said. "Connor doesn't like my milk. Maybe I'm not a good mom." She started to get angry quickly. She didn't get angry with Patrick and Connor, but she was often angry with Marley and me. Marley could do nothing right. I bought a plant and planted it in the yard. The next day, Marley pulled it out and ate it. Then he broke a door in the house. He went crazy when there was a thunderstorm. One day when I got home from work, I found Marley with Jenny. Jenny was very, very angry. "Why do you break everything?" she shouted. "You're a very bad dog." Marley stood with his head down, and she hit him again and again. I went and grabbed Jenny's arms. "Hey, hey, hey," I shouted. "Stop, stop." I looked into Jenny's face, but the look in her eyes was new to me. Her face was the face of a stranger. "Get him out of here," she said. "Get him out of here now." I opened the front door and Marley ran outside. When I turned back for his leash, Jenny said, "You have to find Marley a new home." She couldn't mean it. She loved this dog. I walked out of the door. Marley ran and jumped around. He wasn't hurt,